The story begins in the year 1975 at an orphanage in Spain, where 6 children are playing together. One of them is a girl named Laura. Sometime later, Laura gets adopted. The story then jumps 30 years into the future. Now an adult, Laura lives with her husband and their 7-year-old son. Recently, Laura bought the same orphanage where she grew up. Her goal is to restore it and make it just like it was 30 years ago. A few days later, the family moves into the orphanage. One day, while playing in their new home, Simon tells his parents about his 2 new friends. He says they are invisible and that only he can see them. Laura and her husband assume Simon is just using his imagination, so they don't take him seriously. The next day, Laura takes Simon to the beach, where there is a cave hidden among the rocks. Simon asks if he can go inside, and Laura allows him. But after a long time, when Simon doesn't come out, Laura gets worried and goes inside to look for him. Laura sees Simon talking to someone inside the cave, but when she checks, there's no one there, only small footprints in the sand. She takes Simon out of the cave, and they head home with her husband. On the way back, Simon starts dropping seashells along the path, so that his new friend can follow them and find his house. The next day, a doctor who is also a social worker visits their home. Laura invites her inside. During their conversation, the social worker shows Laura Simon's file. That's when we learn that Simon is not their biological son. He was adopted. The social worker tells Laura that before Simon was adopted, she was the one handling his case. She reveals that Simon has a serious illness and insists that he still needs medical treatment. However, Laura refuses. She explains that her husband is a doctor and that she wants Simon to be treated at home under their supervision instead of going elsewhere for care. Laura takes Simon's file from the social worker, sends her away, and locks the file inside a cupboard. She keeps the key with her, making sure Simon never finds out about his illness. That night, Laura is woken up by a loud noise. The sound seems to be coming from the shed outside their house, so she goes to check. When she reaches the shed, she is shocked to find the social worker there. As soon as the woman sees Laura, she quickly runs away. Laura's husband also arrives, but they have no idea what the social worker was doing there or what she was looking for. The next morning, when Laura opens the front door, she finds a pile of seashells outside. These are the same shells Simon had dropped on their way back from the cave. Simon then tells Laura more about his 6 invisible friends. He says, "Very soon, I will become like them and stay with them forever." This statement unsettles Laura. Later, she finds one of Simon's drawings. It shows 6 children, one of whom is wearing a mask. Each child is holding an object in their hands. Curious, Laura shows the drawing to Simon and asks what the objects are. Simon explains that it's part of a game. These children steal people's belongings and then leave clues. The person must follow the clues to find their lost item. If they succeed, the children grant them one wish. Simon excitedly tells Laura, "This is a game. Now I'm going to play it with my friends. I have to find my missing coins. They hid them somewhere." Laura, thinking that Simon just wants to play with her, decides to join in. She assumes that Simon himself set up all the clues and hid the coins as part of the game. Simon finds the first clue, which leads them to another location where they find the second clue. Following the trail step by step, they keep uncovering more hints. Eventually, Simon discovers a key. To Laura's shock, it's the key to the cupboard where she had locked away Simon's medical file. When Simon unlocks the cupboard, he finds his missing coins hidden between the pages of the medical file. He gets excited, but before he can celebrate, Laura snatches the file from him and scolds him. Simon then looks at her and says, "I know that I'm sick, and I know I'm going to die soon." Laura is shocked. She asks him, "Who told you that?" Simon replies, "My invisible friend, Thomas. He always wears a mask." Hearing this, Laura is deeply disturbed. The next day, Laura hosts a party for the children she plans to adopt. When she goes to call Simon, he refuses to come. Instead, he says, "Come with me to Thomas's house." Laura refuses Simon's request, saying, "No, we can't go. There's a party at home." This leads to an argument between them. Simon gets upset and starts misbehaving. Frustrated, Laura slaps him. Almost immediately, she regrets it. She didn't mean to hurt him. Feeling guilty, she starts looking for Simon around the house. But no matter where she looks, he's nowhere to be found. As she searches, she suddenly sees a child standing nearby. He is dressed in old worn-out clothes and wears a mask over his face. It's the same masked child that Simon had drawn in his picture. Laura, thinking it's Simon, moves toward him. As Laura tries to remove the mask from the child's face, he pushes her away, forcing her into the bathroom. He slams the door so hard that Laura's fingers get caught, and she injures them. In pain, she pulls her hand back, and the child locks the door from the outside. Hearing the noise, Laura's husband rushes to the door and unlocks it, pulling her out. By now, Simon is still missing, and everyone starts searching for him. Laura looks for him in every room of the house, but when she realizes that Simon isn't at home, she heads toward the beach to search there. Laura runs toward the cave, crossing the sea, but just as she's about to drown, her husband arrives in time to save her. She's taken to the hospital. Meanwhile, the police search for Simon, even going into the cave. At the hospital, The police speak to Laura. Her husband informs her that the police couldn't find Simon in the cave. Laura is confused and insists, "That can't be true. I saw him standing outside the cave myself, and that's when I ran." But the police tell her that it was just her imagination. They also suggest that Simon might have been kidnapped by someone close to her or someone she knows. Laura suspects the social worker who had come to investigate Simon as the person responsible for his kidnapping. She tells the police, "I think she's the one who took my son." However, the police inform her that no such social worker exists. But Laura is certain that the social worker is involved in Simon's disappearance. Since Laura has injured her leg, she now has to use a wheelchair. Seeing her in this condition, her husband tries to comfort and support her. He takes off his chain and gives it to her, saying, "Wear this. When Simon comes back, I'll take it back from you." That night, while Laura is in her room, she hears a sound coming from Simon's room. Laura goes to Simon's room and finds a doll on his bed. 6 months pass, but there is still no sign of Simon. One day, while Laura and her husband are driving to the market, she spots the social worker again. The social worker is carrying a pram, and Laura is convinced that she's the one who took her son. Before Laura can reach her, an ambulance rushes past and hits the social worker, causing her death. Laura sees the pram under the ambulance, but instead of a child, she finds the doll inside it. The doll's face has a mask, just like Simon's invisible friend, Thomas. The police investigate the social worker and discover that she wasn't actually a doctor, but had worked at the same orphanage where Laura grew up 30 years ago. They also learn that the social worker had a son named Thomas, who wore a mask to cover his severely disfigured face. She kept him hidden from everyone. When Laura was adopted, one day, the children from the orphanage took Thomas to a cave by the sea. There, they removed his mask to see if Thomas would come out without it. They wanted to see if he would still come out without the mask, revealing his face. The children had already left, but Thomas stayed behind in the cave. When the high waves of the sea came crashing in, the water flooded the cave, and poor Thomas couldn't escape. He drowned there. Laura is devastated and says, "How could this happen? Because the day Simon disappeared, I saw Thomas in my house." The police insist that it's not possible because Thomas had died long ago, and it was just Laura's imagination. 3 months pass, and Laura and her husband return home. One night, as Laura lies in bed, her husband joins her, and they start talking. As Laura recalls the time she spent with Simon, she becomes completely immersed in the memories. She shares these feelings with her husband, but a little while later, when the door opens, her husband enters the room. Laura becomes alarmed, realizing that if her husband just entered, then who was lying with her on the bed? She quickly lifts the blanket, but to her shock, there is no one there. This frightens her, and she tells her husband, but neither of them can make sense of it. In their confusion, they decide to invite a medium to their house. A medium is someone who communicates with spirits, hoping to get answers from beyond. The medium, along with her team, arrives at Laura's house. They set up various equipment throughout the house to communicate with spirits. Laura, her husband, and the medium's team are gathered in one room while the medium searches the rest of the house for spirits. When the medium enters one of the rooms, she hears the voices of 5 children, sounding terrified. The rest of the group, who are in another room, can hear the children crying through the audio equipment. The medium tries to communicate with the spirits. When she asks about Simon, suddenly, all the machines lose power. They stop working, and the entire process is abruptly halted. When everyone gathers together, the medium apologizes to Laura, saying that she couldn't find Simon. She also tells Laura that those who are close to death or nearing death can often see spirits. Hearing this, Laura starts thinking about Simon's illness and wonders if that's why he could see those spirits, which he called his invisible friends. The medium advises Laura, "You are a mother, and a mother's power is the greatest. You can find Simon with the power of your love. You just need to pay attention to even the smallest details." The medium leaves, and Laura goes to the room where the medium had heard the voices of the 5 children's spirits. When she enters, the window behind her suddenly slides down on its own, causing the glass to shatter. In that room, Laura finds a box filled with many dolls, along with a picture of Simon. It seems like these items were placed there as clues. This reminds her of the game Simon had told her about, where he found clues. She realizes that the spirits are playing the same game with her, just like Simon described. Now, she starts to pay close attention to the clues. As she follows them, she finds a doorknob. She checks the entire house but can't find a door without a knob, so she heads to the shed. There, she discovers a locket belonging to the social worker. This reminds her that the social worker had come there once before, likely looking for something. Laura starts breaking open the doors to small chambers in the shed and removes bags of cement. But when she opens them, she is horrified to find the bodies of 5 children, the very children she had grown up with in the orphanage. These were the same children who had taken Thomas to the cave, where he died. After Thomas's death, his mother, the social worker, had killed these 5 children and hidden their bodies in the shed of the orphanage. Since Laura had reopened the orphanage, the social worker came to remove the bags to make sure no one found out about it. Laura tells her husband all of this, but he doesn't believe her. He says that they should leave the orphanage and move on. Laura agrees but asks him to give her 2 more days. She wants to stay alone in the orphanage for those 2 days. Her husband agrees, and he leaves. After her husband leaves, Laura starts changing everything in the house. She moves out the furniture and replaces it with the old furniture to make it look like how it was 30 years ago when the orphanage first opened. Then, she puts on the orphanage caretaker's uniform, sets the dining table with food, and places her friends' dolls on the chairs. She sits down at the table herself. After that, she starts calling the spirits of her friends through the doorknob. But when nothing happens for a while, Laura begins to play a game she used to play with her 5 friends at the orphanage when she was a child. Soon, the spirits of the 5 children appear. She asks them about Simon, and they begin to play a game of hide and seek with her. One of the spirits goes to a secret room. Laura follows the trail to a room filled with old belongings, and she finds a door with a broken knob. The same knob she had found earlier. She uses it to open the door, which leads to a staircase going down to the basement. In the basement, she discovers several sketches, drawings created by the social worker's son, Thomas, who had been kept hidden there away from everyone's eyes. But then, Laura finds something even more shocking. The dead body of her own son, Simon. Seeing Simon's lifeless body causes Laura to break down completely. Overwhelmed by grief and horror, she collapses and sobs uncontrollably. In that moment, memories flood back, and she realizes the deep mistake she made, feeling intense regret for what happened. The truth finally dawns on Laura. The child she had mistaken for Thomas, the one with the mask, was actually Simon. When Laura had denied him the chance to go with his invisible friend Thomas and slapped him out of frustration, Simon had become upset and ran off to the basement. While everyone was frantically searching for him, Simon had been hiding in that very basement all along, unknowingly trapped in the dark, eerie place. Laura realizes her tragic mistake. When she visited the small room earlier, she didn't consider the possibility of a hidden basement. She had ignored the door, unaware that it led to a secret space. While adjusting the large pipes, she had accidentally caused them to fall in front of the basement door, blocking it. This left Simon trapped inside, unable to escape. When Laura heard noises from the room after returning from the hospital, it was Simon trying to open the basement door. But just then, he slipped and fell down the stairs, which caused his death. The sorrow and guilt of not realizing sooner, and unknowingly contributing to his fate, overwhelm her. In the final moments, Laura, consumed by grief, brings Simon's lifeless body to her room. Holding him in her arms, she takes a fatal overdose of sleeping pills. In the next moment, Laura's spirit is seen with Simon by her side in the afterlife. They are surrounded by the spirits of the 5 children and Thomas, all of whom are now at peace. Simon, having won the game with the spirits and made his wish to stay with his mother forever, is finally reunited with her. Together, in the afterlife, they are happy and content, with all the spirits at rest. Even though they are all spirits, Simon, Thomas, the 5 other children, and Laura continue to live together in the house. Laura tells stories to the children. Meanwhile, Laura's husband is seen at the orphanage, where he had buried the bodies of Laura, Simon, Thomas, and the other children. As he returns to the orphanage, he finds the chain he had once given to Laura. He picks it up, a peaceful smile spreading across his face. The door in front of him opens on its own, and he realizes that Laura and Simon are finally together. As the return of the chain signals that their spirits are at rest, Laura and Simon, reunited in the afterlife, are happy together, and the film ends here, on a note of closure and tranquility.